My tip to stop procrastinating is to stop giving your tendency to build propensity this negative, pejorative word procrastination. See, the thing is, I teach archery sometimes to children, and the children come and they each have a little bow, and we have some arrows, and I tell them, now, I'm going to show you something, why we use a bow to make a stick, an arrow, go from here to that target over there. I want each of you to hold a little arrow, and they all hold these little arrows with suction cups on the end so that nobody can be hurt by them. And they all have their arrows in their hand. And I draw my arrow back on my bow. And I say to them, all right, when I say go, you're going to run to the target as fast as you can and stick your arrow in the target. Stick your arrow on the target, because suction cups. I have a suction cup on my arrow too. And then when I say go, I release my arrow. And in a fraction of a second, my arrow has traveled and it's sitting in the target. And the kids are running to the target to put their arrows in. And when they come back, I say, now you see why we use a bow? You can run as fast as you can and stick the arrow on the target, or you can draw the arrow away from the target, hold it in a place of anchor where you anchor it, load that arrow up with potentiality, and then at the last moment, you release it, and the arrow flies with, instead of going like a rainbow, it goes with a flat trajectory, and it goes 100 times faster than you can run. We've just demonstrated that, so now let's all learn how to pull the arrow away from the target in order to make it go to the target with tremendous force. This is what people call procrastination. You draw back all of your potential and you allow the forces of nature to activate your full creativity. If there's not sufficient demand on your full potential, if there's not the moment of building the propensity of energy, of intelligence, that stimulation of your creativity because there's a deadline coming, and then you release too early, then what happens? It's like you pull the arrow back on the bow and you'll only pull it back this much. When this is full draw, you only pull this much. Then what happens? You release the arrow and it just goes like that. Maybe it goes 5-10 feet and then curves into the ground. But when you allow that buildup of time demand, energy that's coming from a deadline that's approaching and all of that, and you get the timing right, and then you release with maximum power. Maximum thrust goes into that thing. It becomes an art form. It's an art form. Those who use the word procrastinate are usually those who themselves are not achievers. When someone asks you, why are you procrastinating? They themselves don't have faith in their own capability to really produce the finest product with absolute ease at the last minute. You see, the thing is that letting things go to the brink, and we don't want to miss the moment. We don't want to release the arrow late. We want to release it in time. But too early a release when you haven't finished drawing fully is going to end up with a lackluster performance of the arrow. Arrow of the mind and the thoughts has to be drawn back fully into that completely considered state, but there has to be an external pressure. Time. Deadline. Deadline coming. Time, and it stimulates our creativity. It stimulates it. If you decide that this is in fact what you're doing, and you don't listen to all of those words, procrastination over here and procrastination over there, but you allow yourself to perform under the pressure of demand, you'll find that you'll turn this into an art form and you'll get the maximum out of it. See, the thing is, in school, we all know the kids who hear that there's a term paper at the end of the term that's due, and they hear what it's about, and they have to turn in their term paper, and maybe they have another 50 or 60 days of school before they have to turn it in. And there'll be kids who turn in the term paper the next day, and the deadline isn't for another 50 or 60 days. As teachers, we know those are the term papers that are the least creative, the least considerate, the least impressive. They just got the work done, but it's kind of mediocre work. Whereas the ones who've mastered the art of letting a considered response to a demand come out with perfect timing, using the pressure of a deadline, and getting the work done on time, but getting it done even supposedly at the last minute, quote unquote, we always see the highest product come out of that. All creatives know this to be the truth. A creative can't get creative until there's a deadline. Deadlines are our best friend. And so how can you use a deadline? What's the best way to use it? The best way to use it is to approach it with confidence, knowing what you're doing. The novel that you have to write by a certain deadline is already writing itself in your subconscious mind. When are you going to release the arrow from the bow? You'll release it when the timing is perfect. And the timing is only going to be perfect when there's a spontaneous interaction between your inner capability and its confidence in itself and the deadline itself. The interaction between those two, you interact with a deadline with the greatest efficiency when you know how to use a deadline to stimulate your creativity and to really make you perform at your top level. And all great performers, sports people, and artists who are successful, whether they know it or not, upon review, if they listen to these words, they'll realize that they're actually doing this. I've mentioned many times that I used to be a professional surfer. And when I would ride in a contest, here's the interesting thing. The surfer who wins the highest points is the one who takes off on the wave when it's in the most critical position, when the wave is going vertical instead of it being a slight hump, when it's going vertical. And then they drop into the wave when the wave already is cascading over and about to crush them. Instead, they get to the bottom and then they turn. And they get into the exact most critical spot of the wave. If they're way out in the safe place, way out on the shoulder of the wave, they don't get so many points. If they're back inside the part of the wave that's the most critical, that's the most dangerous, and looking absolutely casual while doing all of this. If you look as though you're fighting for survival and in a kind of what surfers refer to as a stink bug stance, you don't get so many points. If you look as though you're waiting for a bus on a street corner when you're riding on a 3 times overhead wave and you're in the most critical position of the wave, but you look casual about it, you get the maximum number of points. And we can apply this to any sport. We can apply it to any art. We can apply it to any art form. The ability to come out with exactly the right power-packed thing in a very relaxed way at the absolute last minute is considered to be aplomb. You do things with aplomb. Because we have the 100 billion neuron brain. We don't have the 500 million squirrel brain. We don't have the brain of the chicken or the turkey. We have the big human brain. And anything that anyone wants to bring to us, you have 1 month. Okay, that means what does that mean for me? 3 days. That means I have almost a month to play, and then I have 3 days where I have to get serious and really pay attention to something. Or maybe they say 1 month, and if you're using 100% of your potential, what the average person calls 1 month of preparation time, you consider it to be 3 minutes. Or maybe it's 3 seconds for you. These days, for the last maybe 25, 30 years, when I have to give speeches, I had to give a speech at the World Economic Forum. Prime ministers were there, finance ministers were there, and so on. And I had to give a half-hour presentation there, and it was a keynote address. And when the organizers, one of the organizers was my advocate, which is why I was there. But some of the other organizers said, we need to know what it is you're going to say to all these people. I said, we'll know when I say it. I have no idea what I'm going to say. And it was only when I stood at the podium and there were 300 people listening that my mouth opened and out came the words. Everyone here is talking about how the world finances and economics are going to deal with climate change. And to me, the sad thing is that everyone here is experiencing chronic brain failure. And those were my opening lines at the World Economic Forum. And there was a kind of a titter of giggles that went through the room. And then I had another 29 minutes to explain myself. I didn't prepare a speech. I had no notes written or anything. At the end of the conference, my talk was voted the #1 most interesting talk of all the different addresses that were given. So how do you achieve that? You achieve it by awakening your full potential and knowing that that's what you have. And you use a deadline as a stimulus. It's a means to get your creative juices flowing. And the more you are grounded in full use of your potential, and you know that, the more you can go like a surfer. The last minute drop in, the most critical part of the wave, and be completely casual while carrying it off with aplomb. And you'll know that you're getting it right because there'll be ovations. There'll be people praising you for what you do. Even though for you, most of the time that everyone else spends in preparation for some great thing, you're going to consider to be time for enjoying life. It's a time of enjoyment. And, people who get it done too soon usually are not using their fullest potential. They're afraid of deadlines. They're afraid of approaching a deadline. Fear-based achievement is usually relatively low achievement. So procrastination is a word that's invented by people who don't know how to use their full potential.